Welcome to AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K. And on this episode, I'm going to be taking you guys on a little trip out west to British Columbia, Canada. I visited there with my daughter at the beginning of this month, August. And we spent 8 days out in beautiful British Columbia, where a lot of my relatives and family are originally from. So we went back there as my daughter's never been to Western Canada. And we spent 4 days in Vancouver and 4 days in Victoria. And enjoyed the sights and sounds and some great meals and the scenery. And I took my daughter all around to various places. And we had a fantastic holiday, a holiday that was long needed by me and my daughter after a pandemic and the loss of my mom and the loss of my pets and so many things. It was just so nice to get away and escape Toronto and escape the eastern side of Canada and head out west where my roots are, and revisit some of my favorite places in Canada, and for my daughter to see them for the first time. But of course, while I was out there, I had to do a little bit of record shopping, and my daughter bought some records too, so it wasn't like dad dragged daughter to a record store and bored her to death. I visited a total of 5 record stores between Vancouver and Victoria. I visited 2 in Vancouver and 3 in Victoria, BC. Where we did a little bit of shopping. Obviously didn't spend too much time shopping because my daughter and I were busy doing many things while we were in Vancouver. We visited the Vancouver Aquarium. We spent a lot of time walking around and exploring downtown Vancouver. We had a wonderful ferry trip on the car ferry from Vancouver over to Vancouver Island and Schwartz Bay. And then we stayed in Victoria and had a fantastic time in Victoria, where, of course, I met up with Rachel's ghost, Rachel, the music ma'am. Rachel's ghost. We met up and spent an afternoon with Rachel, and Rachel was very gracious. Rachel and Sue were very gracious and drove us all over Victoria and out of town of Victoria to the little town of Sydney, where my parents used to live. So Rachel took me by both the houses that my parents lived in while they were in Victoria. One house in a place called Deep Cove that I actually took a picture with my daughter in front of my parents' old house, which was really nice. My mom would be happy that we did that. And the last condo building they lived in, a beautiful condo building they lived in Maddox Farm. So Rachel drove us by those places, as well as Rachel showed us houses where she and Sue grew up and lived in Vancouver and Victoria. Rachel and Sue, 2 of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. What a fun afternoon. And we got into some hijinks. For those of you that watch Rachel Ghost's morning stream, of course, she premiered the AGK and Rachel romance for a week. Rachel and I took some crazy pictures and videos. And of course, you guys probably saw my Baywatch short on the channel already. And for those of you who don't follow my Facebook or my Instagram or didn't see the pictures on Rachel's ghost and on her morning show, I'm inserting those pictures at the end of this video here. Some crazy pictures we took on our visit. I just had a lot of fun and acted like a couple of kids, even though we're both like senior citizens. But it was a lot of fun, and thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, of course, took us to one record store as well, where I went shopping with Rachel. So without further ado, I'm going to show you my vlog, and these are just snippets I filmed. I did some short, 2-3 minute videos in the various record stores that I visited in Vancouver and Victoria. So you're going to see videos at the record shop, Beat Street Records, I think it's called Beat Street Records. Both of those are in Vancouver. And then from Victoria, you're going to see the turntable in Fan 10, LA. I just have a photo from there. Supreme Echo, which is the store I went to with Rachel, I just have a photo from that. But I do have 3 little short vlogs, video tours of 3 of the record stores, as well as I'm going to insert a couple little street musicians that I saw while I was out there. Buskers, street musicians. One guy wailing on a guitar, doing probably the longest solo in the history of solos, because he just continued to solo for hours on end. But he was cool. And one Peruvian pan flutist. And I love Peruvian pan flute. And of course, my daughter's half Peruvian. So we stopped, and that was in Granville Island. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you the records I bought in the various stores. And then we'll close it out with a little slideshow of my hijinks with Rachel's ghost. So enjoy this vlog, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. I'm in beautiful downtown Vancouver, BC, Canada on vacation, and I found a record store. So I thought I'd come in and check out the record store here in downtown Vancouver, Canada on August 1st, on my first day of my vacation. Let's check it out. Day 3 of my Vancouver trip, and I'm in Beat Street Records, and I found a couple things I am going to pick up here at Beat Street Records in the heart of downtown Vancouver. In the heart of downtown Vancouver, Beat Street Records. Great selection of stuff. And I actually did find 2 things here, and my daughter found something. And we're gonna pick them up here at Beat Street. Great record store. Really great record store. Great record store here, guys. Stuff on the wall. They have their Holy Grail section here. Check out some of these things, guys. Holy Grails. Rare heavy metal. Rare classic rock. Rare Beatles. So I did find a couple things I'm going to get here, and my daughter found something she wants. So I think it was a successful trip here to Beat Street Records. Oh, slip mats even. Local indie rock. Beat Street Records, people, on West Hastings in downtown Vancouver. Beat Street Records, come check it out. So I'm in beautiful downtown Victoria on the August long weekend Monday, and I'm at Ditch Records. I've already been to Turntables in Tan Pan Alley, and I was with Rachel at Supreme Echo Records a couple of days ago. And now we're at Ditch Records, which I know Rachel's Ghost has talked about shopping here many times. So we're at Ditch Records in beautiful downtown Victoria, BC, Canada. They got new stuff. As you can see, it's a pretty big store. Looks like they got tons of CDs, DVDs, records, boxes of records. So I'm going to do a little crate dig, and if I pick up anything, I'll be showing you guys later on in this vlog. I'll show you guys what I picked up at Ditch, as well as all the other stores on my trip to Vancouver and Victoria. This will be the last record store I visit on my 1 week holiday. I've been to a few record stores and bought a few things in the various places. So I will show you guys everything I picked up at all the various record stores on my trip when I get back to Toronto. And we're back, and I hope you enjoyed all those little snippets from the various places we visited. I didn't want to make this a family vacation video and show you a bunch of pictures and videos that I took with my daughter at the aquarium and Bouchard Gardens and all these places that we visited. We went whale watching. Our last night in Victoria, we went whale watching on a whaling boat, and that was spectacular. We saw 4 different humpback whales. One came right up to the boat, one came right up out of the water. Absolutely incredible. Best way to end our holiday vacation was going whale watching and seeing these gorgeous humpback whales. So I hope you enjoyed that little vlog, and now I'll show you what I picked up on that trip. Obviously, I didn't bring a big suitcase of records back. It was a vacation, and my daughter and I were staying fairly mobile and not heavily bagged down with baggage. My daughter bought 3 records while she was out there. She bought one by the weekend. I don't know which one it was. And she bought one by one of her favorite bands, an alternative band called The Neighborhood, one that she's been looking for a long time that is out of print, so she was happy to find that, and one by another band called Sleeping with Sirens, which are a kind of alternative metal band. Also an album that she has not been able to find anywhere here that is also out of print, so I'm really happy for her that she picked up something by Sleeping with Sirens, The Neighborhood, and The Weeknd. And I picked up a grand total of 7 things on the trip. So we brought 10 albums back with us, and that was enough. And of course, I also bought some souvenirs, such as this Clash shirt. That's right, this Clash shirt, which I found at a little t-shirt store in Fantan Alley in Victoria. I love this Clash shirt. I also bought a Ramones shirt at that store, a really nice Ramones shirt that I've never seen before. So 2 shirts I've never seen before I found in this little t-shirt store in Fantan Alley, Victoria. And you'll see the Ramones shirt, I'm sure, in a future video on this channel. And of course, my fit checkout today, besides this beautiful Clash shirt, is my Vancouver, nice Vancouver hat, new hat for the collection from Vancouver. So without further ado, let's see the albums now. The first record store I visited, which I think was just called the record store. I can't remember what it was called. It's in the video, which I haven't seen now when I'm filming this, because I'm splicing it in after this is filmed, if you can figure out what I'm talking about. At any rate, the first store was just called, I think, the record store. The sign, I just had a picture of a record. That was it. There was no words on the name of the store. It was just a picture of a record. And I didn't buy anything in that store because it was, though I did the tour there, showed you guys the tour in the video here, the prices were crazy. Way overpriced, in my opinion, way overpriced. I saw some really great trance singles from the late 90s and early 2000s that I would have died to have, but they were ridiculously priced. For 12-inch singles, you were looking at $30 plus for a 12-inch single. And I looked at some of the other stuff, and all the stuff there was overpriced. So I didn't buy anything in that first store in Vancouver. But the second store, Beat Street Records, and here's the bag from Beat Street Records in Vancouver. Beat Street Records, records, CDs, tapes, art supplies, toys, collectibles, apparel, and more on West Hastings Street in Vancouver, BC. And I found a couple things in that store. My daughter found one of her albums in that store. And an interesting store. They had a really great selection there. The prices were reasonable. They had a lot of sections that I don't see in record stores here in Toronto, for example. So there was quite a few things I saw in that record store that I've never seen here. And they also sold art supplies like paints and stuff. So it was kind of weird that they had a small section of art supplies. They had collectibles, but they had, of course, the main thing was, of course, records, and they did have CDs as well. But I found 2 things in that record store myself. The first, I haven't seen this one. I haven't seen this one anywhere. Of course, people know I collect Godzilla soundtracks. I just got the big Godzilla box set earlier in the year, and I've bought a few single Godzilla albums. This is another one from Mondo, a division of Mondo called Death Waltz Records. And this is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I haven't had a chance to open it yet. Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. It's on an eco vinyl like the other Godzillas are on. I don't know what's in the gatefold. But this is from the 90s version of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, from the 90s series of Godzilla films. So happy to add one more Godzilla soundtrack to my collection, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. So happy to find that one and add it to my collection. But this one, when I saw this one at Beat Street Records in Vancouver, I jumped on it immediately. From Studio Ghibli Records, pressed in Japan, Japanese import, the soundtrack to one of my favorite anime films of all time, Princess Mononoke. 2 LP set, pressed in Japan. First, an original, brand new release pressing, or new pressing, reissue pressing, whatever you want to call it. Beautiful. The price was reasonable. It wasn't pricey, but reasonable. Of course, this is the Japanese version, and of course, as you can see, this is how they come. They don't come sealed from Japan. It's got the obi strip here, and beautiful inside. It's a 2 LP set. Everything's in Japanese. But all the song titles, everything. It's all in Japanese. But this is the soundtrack to Princess Mononoke, one of my favorite anime films of all time, done by Studio Ghibli. If you guys have never seen it, it is certainly a worthy introduction into the world of anime. It is a gorgeous film. So absolutely thrilled to find the soundtrack to Princess Mononoke, the original Japanese pressing of that. And those are the 2 things I picked up at Beat Street Records. So happy to find that Princess Mononoke. And that was all I picked up in Vancouver, just those 2, and my daughter picked up 1. And then when we got to Victoria, we went to 3 record stores, like I said, and I showed in the video there. The first one I went to, I showed you a photo of in my little vlog, and it was called the Turntable. And it was also in Fan Tan Alley, literally across from the t-shirt. I think it was across or next to the t-shirt store that I found these t-shirts in. And I'd gone in there the first day we arrived in Victoria looking for a record for Rachel. She was looking for the 5th and final Klaatu album, Magellan, I think it's called, or I think it's Magellan, something like that. It's the final of the 5 studio albums that the Canadian band Klaatu recorded. And I had looked for it for Rachel here in Toronto. She'd asked me to look for it. And I actually went to 5 stores in Toronto and couldn't find a single copy before I left Toronto to Vancouver. So, and I didn't find it at either of the stores I did watch for it in the 2 stores I went to in Vancouver. Couldn't find it there. And then the first store we went to in Victoria, I couldn't find it there either. But what I did find there is this right here. And this is called Classic Klaatu. This is uber rare. Uber rare. Classic Klaatu. It is a compilation taken from their 5 studio albums. It was only ever released once. There's only 1 pressing of this album, and this is it. 1 pressing on Daffodil Records. From Capitol on Daffodil Records. I hope you guys can see that label well. On Daffodil Records, there's only 1 pressing in existence of this album. It was also released on a cassette. So there was only a cassette version, and this pressing, it was never repressed and never re-released. To this day, it's only ever been released this 1 time. So it is super rare, this compilation of classic Klaatu albums. So it contains a few things from all of the Klaatu albums. And I only have the first 3 Klaatu albums, so it was nice to get, this way I was able to get things from the 4th and 5th Klaatu albums as well on this. But this is super, super rare, so I grabbed it. Super, super rare Klaatu album that I never even knew it existed. And when I looked it up on Discogs, it turns out that there's only 1 pressing of us. And there was a review on this album that said that the music on this album actually sounded better than the original albums. So I don't know what the mastering was or whatever. I'm excited to hear this, but from what I read, this one sounds better than any of the tracks on the original albums. So we'll see. And so I picked that up at the Turntable in Fan Tan Alley, Victoria. Then, of course, when I went with Rachel's Ghost, to Supreme Echo is where I found my last 4 purchases, the last things that I purchased. Though we did go to Ditch Records, which I showed you after that, but I personally didn't find anything at Ditch Records that I wanted to buy, though my daughter bought her Sleeping with Sirens and the Weekend album at Ditch Records in Victoria. I didn't find anything I wanted there. So the last place I found records was at Supreme Echo, which I went to with Rachel, and there was a photo in the vlog of Rachel and I at Supreme Echo. And the first 2 things I got there were volumes 14 and 15 of Brown Acid, which are the only 2 volumes of Brown Acid I don't have. Those. This brings me back up to date with the Brown Acid series. I haven't seen these for sale in Toronto at all, and they're actually hard to find on, they're really pricey on Amazon, and these were like 30 bucks, like 30 bucks at Supreme Echo. So they were a bargain in Canadian dollars. I don't think I've ever paid this low for Brown Acids, ever. So I found volume number 14 of the Brown Acid series, and as people know, I collected all the Brown Acids. I have everything up to 13. I used to buy directly from Riding Easy Records, but people could check out, go back like a year on my channel and check out my Riding Easy Records video, which maybe I'll leave a link to below. I'm going to leave a link to in the comments section, description section below this video, and you can see why I don't no longer order anything from Riding Easy Records, because they're a bunch of jerks. Their customer service is terrible. They treated me terribly, and I will never buy anything from Riding Easy Records again, though these albums are spectacular. So happy to find volumes 14 and 15. 14 and 15 at Supreme Echo Records in Victoria, BC. So I'm up to date now. Where when volume 16 comes out, who knows where I'll buy that, but I'm not going to order from Riding Easy Records. They are absolutely atrocious people that run that label. So I picked those 2 things up, and of course they are samplers of music. People that don't know the Brown Acid, these are of course samplers of really, really rare hard rock, anything from garage rock, psych, and hard rock from the 60s and 70s. Things that were released only on 45s, things that only ever had a single release, independent artists, whatnot. The Brown Acid series are probably one of the best compilations out there. Too bad, like I said, Riding Easy are a bunch of assholes. Excuse my French. And the last 2 things I picked up, also from Supreme Echo Records. I'm going to do this one first. This is a band this is a great, great, great metal band that never got a chance to be. Hard rock metal. That never got a chance to be. They only released 2 albums. Supreme Echo had recent reissues of both those that are done by, what's the name of this company? Cult Metal Classic Records. Remastered these and reissued these 2 albums. I might pick up the second one because I know Supreme Echo will ship to me here in Toronto. So I might pick up the other album. What I picked up was the second release by this band, and this is a band called Sorcery. A great metal band that never got to be. Hard rock metal band that really never got a chance in life. They were, I believe, out of Chicago, Illinois, originally. This is their second album called Till Death Do We Part. It includes a wonderful, inside here is a wonderful write-up of the whole history of the band. I know that Supreme Echo also had their first album, which I think I might get. Because this album is absolutely fantastic. It's a shame these guys never got a chance, because I was reading through the history of the band that comes in this album, and when they went to record their third album, they finished the third album. The third album is done and finished and sitting somewhere in the world, but it was never released by the label because the label weren't happy with it. And it wasn't the direction the label wanted. We're going for. They wanted a very commercial album, and I guess that's not what it was. And so the label dropped the group and never released the third album, and the group disbanded because of it. So a great, great hard rock metal group that never got a chance to be. And this is their second album, Till Death Do We Part, and it is spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I have to get their first album. Original presses of this album here, original presses of this album go for close to $800. So thrilled to find this at Supreme Echo. He had a beautiful curated store. He had so much really cool, rare things at his store. And the last thing I got was this one right here by a band, wanted something local. And this is actually pressed by Supreme Echo. The fellow that runs the store also has his own label, and he presses albums himself. Well, I guess he gets them pressed by some pressing plant, but he has his own record label, and he has reissued this, which is a Vancouver band called As Sheriff, And 6 Ways to the Ace is the name of the album. And this is from 1969, I believe it was, 1969. 1969-70 it was recorded in Vancouver, a Vancouver psych band, heavy psych band. And the last track on here was actually recorded at Club Tango in Victoria, BC. There's a bonus track on here, which was a live track recorded at Club Tango. And they are a heavy psych band from Vancouver. Never amounted to much, but the whole history of the band is in here. Fantastic, and as you can see, released by Supreme Echo himself. Super rare. Really happy to go to another city and find something by a band, a local band that is uber rare, that you'll never find this in Toronto, ever. And I don't think you can even hardly find them on Discogs. There's not many for sale. And it's on... There's the Supreme Echo label. And it comes with this wonderful, wonderful book that basically tells you everything and anything about As Sheriff. A wonderful put together book. Includes all sorts of newspaper articles and magazine. Everything they could find on the band As Sheriff is presented in this beautiful 8-page book. Look at that. Isn't that spectacular? Absolutely spectacular. And so that's everything I bought on my Vancouver Victoria trip. Not a lot, but like I said, I was there having a vacation, not doing a lot of record shopping. And, you know, this weighs enough. Never mind, you know, the other 3 that my daughter got. So, you know, I didn't want to overweigh our suitcases. But I hope you enjoyed this little vlog of our trip out west. And finishing off the show as we lead out now is some pictures of Rachel's ghost, Sue, and I. And maybe my daughter might be a picture in there of my daughter and I as well, with Rachel. But we'll leave with a little slideshow of the hijinks that Rachel and I got up to on our visit in Victoria. And I'll see you guys very, very soon in my next video. And as I always say, rock and roll!